Welcome back to Career Tea, where we get into the real stories behind the careers you don't hear enough about. Our guest today is someone who's carved an impressive path through the world of digital marketing, worked with firms like RKD Group, Helen and Gertrude, Simpson Scarborough, and more. With a background in new media marketing from Rochester Institute of Technology and an eye for data-driven strategy, she's been at the forefront of digital media campaigns across industries. Andrea Green, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm super excited to, speak with you today and learn a little bit about your area of expertise, the path that you've been on. And so let's just get right into it. And let's start from the beginning to give our listeners some context. You started your education at Monroe Community College and then you transferred to RIT. So I want to know what influenced your decision to pursue a business admin first and then specialize in new media marketing at RIT, because I'm sure a lot of students out there right now, going to attend college are wondering whether I should go to a community college, get 2 year degree, and then go, to my specific major where I want to specialize in. I know a lot of my friends did that, and that's a big decision. So what influenced your decision in that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say a couple factors, one being the biggest, which is my mother. She is, and still will continue to probably be just a very big component in my career decisions in life, just because we're so close. And she's really helped me kind of carve that path and be that almost mentor, even though I have like other mentors too in my career for specific marketing advice. But she really helped me kind of understand at a young age that I could save a ton of money going the 2+2 route,
Hmm.
which is what you're talking about in terms
Yep.
of going to MCC first, getting out a lot of my gen eds, and then going to RIT and still getting that degree technically from RIT. So it's a little bit of a cheat code in terms of higher education, which is
Yeah,
great.
that's awesome that your mom kind of, had that insight and told you, a lot of times students and kids are more, influenced by what their parents suggest to them. So it's nice that she did that, because you're right. In the first 2 years of school, you take so many general type classes. And, I wish I knew that. If I had really thought about it, I would have done that too. Because you waste so much money, taking those first 2 years, and you could save so much money. I had friends that went that route, and coming out of college, their debt was way less than mine was, if nothing. So I completely, see what your mom was suggesting to you.
Yeah, it's crazy. I actually just paid off all of my student loans this year, so it's just a really freeing feeling.
Damn. Hopefully one day I will understand what that
Yeah.
feeling is too.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what was your mindset during college when it came to like career planning?
Yeah.
Did you have like a clear direction early on during those first 2 years at MCC?
Yeah, I would say honestly, it even started back in high school. I've just been very fortunate to grow up in a very affluent area that had a lot of support in terms of just career development, understanding kind of like what you wanted to do and why, and then being able to have free opportunities to do that. A
Hmm.
lot of what I did even back in high school was just kind of better understanding like what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and what are things I like to do versus not. And that really helped me propel, I would say, into college, having a very clear understanding and really working with my advisors at school as well as my mom and just kind of carving out that plan of the courses that I wanted to take and why and
Hmm.
where that would take me moving forward. Now, did I know exactly what I wanted to do? No.
Yep.
Did I know I would be a media strategist later on? No way. But I was able to kind of just understand that I do like marketing. I like the ability to subliminally influence people in making decisions, and I like working with data, but also having that healthy balance of creative mix too. So that's kind of where I am today, and that's why I like marketing because at the end of the day, you're never doing anything the same pretty much. You're always changing and pivoting and doing different things, but you get that healthy balance of different and variety, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, it always keeps the excitement alive. You
For
never
sure.
get bored in it.
For sure.
So would you say like your 2 years, it worked pretty good to kind of solidify your belief that the route that you wanted to go on, which was marketing?
I would say it, I knew that ahead of time because I did a lot of shadowing
Hmm.
and informational interviews that really helped me kind of understand that marketing was the place for me. And I also did a lot of just like outside, um, I wouldn't necessarily call it like a co-op or an internship. They were mini kind of ones that were
Hmm.
very small, but they did help me get experience in understanding like what digital marketing is and the different flavors of it.
Yeah.
Once I started getting into the real world, though, that really started to solidify more and more.
Yeah, and these internships and co-ops were at RIT, correct?
So some were and some were not. Some were in
Mm,
high school through like really just like small things like Abbott's Frozen Custard, which is just a regional like ice cream shop here. But it was
nice.
really helpful for me just to kind of understand like the basics of social media
Yeah.
and then be able to propel that and apply that in a co-op at RIT. And
Yeah.
that was the big one for me.
Did you go after these internships yourself? Like, how were you able to attain them?
Yeah, so most of these I just use my network, and that is like one of the big things that I would say is huge for anybody is making sure that not even if you don't have like a huge network, but just being able to make relationships with people is so significant because it will help you later on kind of understand where you want to go, who you want to talk to about like experiences and why, and all of those really helped, I would say, shape where I am today.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think networking and just having that group, especially in this day and age, is
Yeah.
so important. As if somebody refers a network, a connection to a job or an internship, they're way more likely to get attention than somebody that just applies through the general way. And especially with your field too, being in marketing and social media, I feel like every company, every business has need in that area. So it's awesome that you kind of went out on your own and you found it, whether with networking. That's the way to go. You just have to go for it and get it. I heard a quote from one of my guests recently that said, closed mouths don't get fed. And I'm like, I like that. If you just stay back, no one's gonna come hand you things. You have to kind of go and ask for it.
Oh, that's so true. That's like from one of my quotes from my grandfather is that like you have all these opportunities like flying above your head, but it's
Hmm.
really like, are you going to reach up and grab one?
Yeah. Yeah. And some of these opportunities will appear in different people's minds. And it's like whoever goes for it first. So when you were kind of going through RIT, you're going having these internships and co-ops, gaining more experience, right? What kind of career, as you said too in the beginning, you didn't really picture what you were going to be working on full time. So as you're going through your schooling, what kind of career did you picture yourself having when you're finishing school? And then how far or how close would you say your current reality is from that picture that you had back then?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say like at first I kind of pictured myself more in, I would say, a very like super corporate environment, meaning large company, large teams working on maybe like one or two projects of something related to marketing, like trying to market a product really.
Yeah.
And I didn't fully understand how much businesses also need support in marketing their services too. So what was really helpful was again the co-op from RAT really helped me understand like B2B or business to business marketing and kind of understanding the layers of like when you're in a Fortune 500 company that is very matrixed or very large and there's a lot of different people that you need to talk to, understanding not only relationships but like communication in those large companies and how things get done
Yeah.
in terms of marketing, like making strategic plans, setting up budgets, making sure we have activations planned out accordingly, and then how those impact from like a web and social media and data perspective and kind of understanding how data gets translated across all of those teams, especially in like such a large environment too. So it was just very like basic building blocks of
Yeah.
understanding, but in a format that was super fun. It was in college and I got paid on the side too, which
Yeah.
was just perfect. It was great. It was
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. It sounds so much more complex than from what you see at the surface.
Yeah.
That's why it's good. Like we're gonna dive into a little bit of your professional experiences too, and I'm sure you'll tell us more about it. So let's talk about your career journey after graduation. One of your first roles was at the RKD Group as a digital media coordinator. So tell me about what was working at the Bonadio Group like, your day to day, and then what did you take away from your experience there?
Yeah, kind of like I had mentioned previously, throughout all of my roles, my day to day just constantly changed. At the Bonadio Group, I really got, and it's kind of weird because my career experiences have been a little bit backwards. I feel like a lot of strategists out of college get a lot of media heavy experience,
Hmm.
meaning like paid ads, primarily. Whereas me, I got a lot of website and I would say like CRM or Salesforce experience too, especially at the Bonadio Group. And
Hmm.
that was interesting to just kind of understand from like more of a business to business perspective how that type of marketing influences other businesses as well as kind of understanding the inner workings. So, really getting my hands dirty with website development, production, as well as data, and really understanding how like lead generation occurs. That was
Hmm.
really heavy there. And that was super beneficial for me to kind of understand. But I was also candidly a little bit in over my head, and I didn't have really the groundwork to kind of support myself from like a professional development standpoint.
Yeah.
So I started to really seek those opportunities more and more and continue to move up there. But in a media coordinator role, anywhere you go, you're really getting those like foundational experiences. So it was just really eye-opening to see all that there could be there while trying to like juggle your day-to-day tasks too.
Yeah, it kind of seems like they kind of like threw you to the sharks.
Yeah.
You had a lot of skills tests. So I'm sure at the time you were there, it was probably feeling very overwhelming, right? Because you said a lot of people coming into professional work from your field, they're more work more on the, advertisement side. But do you think that the route that you went, do you think that it benefited you more because you learned all those heavy, hard, complex topics before like, majority of other people were?
Yeah, and I would say too, like, there's no right way to do any of this, right? It's just like
Yeah.
based off of everyone's different experiences, which is why I think your podcast is amazing because it
Thank you.
gives you different flavors, right? And like
Yeah.
everybody should have this. So I love this. But um I think throwing you to the sharks in some ways is a good thing. And I wouldn't say it was exactly like that because I did end up getting support too, but it's just anywhere you go, you're going to have to figure out how to think fast on your feet, making sure you're meeting deliverables and deadlines. And that just takes like experience and time too. So I think in a roundabout way of where I am now, it kind of gave me new insights that maybe not all graduates would have had. And it's helped me kind of shape my strategies, the way I work with clients and with other colleagues too, in a different
Mhm.
way. So I have different perspectives that they might not fully know about to the best degree of their ability to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a good like lesson or advice also for students that might listen to this episode is, an opportunity that you'll get right out of college to you at the time might not seem like, oh, this is what I want,
Right.
but every opportunity will bring in certain skills, they'll bring in value that you might not see it at that moment, but it will definitely build up and be beneficial down the line. So we'll come back to Bonadio Group with some questions later in the line, but from there, you moved to several other interesting roles at Simpson Scarborough, RKD Group, and now at Helen and Gertrude. Let's walk through how you came to attain those roles, and then what was that progression like going through those different companies? What was the differences between them? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think when you're coming out of college, there's a couple different routes you can go in terms of career development. And for me, I kind of started, like I'd mentioned, kind of backwards. I started
Hmm.
more like corporate and then I went more agency route. So all of these are different flavors of agencies, pretty much. And in a marketing agency, you have the ability to work on multiple projects at the same time with multiple people. And that's kind of the benefit of agency life too, because it's so fast,
Hmm.
typically, right? Um, and you're getting experience as well as you're building your portfolio. So that's the benefit I see, especially because for me, I think too, agency life gives you a little bit more flexibility that corporate life may or may not have. It just depends on where you go,
Yeah.
and who you know. But overall, I think I still want to be able to develop my skills, and marketing changes every day. Like digital marketing will never be the same. And that's
Yeah.
also why I love it too. So I think agency life has really benefited me in that, but I've also overcome a couple obstacles due to agency life too, because as many marketers know, agency life is not necessarily always stable in terms of job placement and job security
Yeah.
too. So pros and cons.
Yeah. Well, when you say, that it's a evolving landscape and it's constantly changing, I was gonna ask this later in the episode, but what are your thoughts on, AI developing so fast and the capabilities that it's bringing?
Yeah.
It's affecting essentially so many different industries, right? So many different fields. One of them possibly being, marketing, advertising, social media. How do you look at that? Do you look at it as something that's beneficial that you can use to your advantage, or do you look at it as more of like a threat to certain skills that you guys have developed and built?
Yeah, that's a great question and one we get all the time. I feel like I'm an AI optimist, I would say. I'm continuing to seek resources and just try and learn as much as I can as new things continue to pop up every day.
Yeah.
I think I have a healthy fear of it though too, just because of right, like AI can hallucinate or just produce wrong answers. And a lot of our use at the moment has been very LLM or learning language model focused, and that's based off of tokens that basically predict the next word you're going to use. So that's not necessarily always the best tool for everything in marketing. However, right, I think it's still immensely important that you educate yourself about how AI produces all this data, where it's sourcing everything from, and then as well as continuing to stay on top of trends.
Yeah.
Because my optimism with AI is that, and where I see things, but take that for a grain of salt, right? It'll change probably tomorrow, but
Yeah.
I think it's still helpful to kind of understand that you should be able to use this tool to your advantage to at least save yourself some time, be more productive, and then be able to draw valuable insights out of it as well. And there's a couple ways that even at Helen and Gertrude, we're looking into how this could be improved in our day-to-day processes. But at the end of the day, you should at least know what AI is and how to use some of its capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like so complex, moving so fast, growing so fast that sometimes it can be overwhelming and scary. But I think if like in 10 years you look back, you're gonna be like, oh, I wish I used it for this. I wish I used it for that. So
Right?
I think the best thing that we can do is just learn how to use it for what we do on our day-to-day basis and hoping that it doesn't overtake our skills. But
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
you mentioned that marketing has different flavors from Monroe Group to the other companies that you worked at. Could you explain a little bit about kind of Simpson Scarborough, RKD Group, and now Helen and Gertrude? What are those flavors of each? Kind of high level, how do those three differ from each other?
I would say Simpson Scarborough, for me at least, was a very, again, like awakening into fast-paced agency life. But at the same time, it wasn't super fast because it was very focused on one industry, which was higher education. So there, I actually got a lot of like brand strategy and research experience, which is a beautiful place to be if you ever get the opportunity to do that. They had an in-house research capability there when I was there. And
Wow.
it was so cool to be able to actually research topics first or actually be able to disseminate messaging in the market and then be able to bolster that messaging with the research they could do too. So it was really like that happy medium of insights and marketing and data too, but being able to show like the creative performance as well. So happy place. And unfortunately, I got laid off there. So that's one of the obstacles we'll get to. But that really helped kind of like me understand that I enjoyed nonprofit work and I wanted to experience that on a broader scale. So I ended up going to RKD Group for a short period of time where I got kind of like a larger matrixed agency life experience, but again, focusing on nonprofits, more around a variety of verticals, like for example, doing wealth or animal health care, animal welfare around there, as well as just a variety, I would say. But that one was my favorite too, just working on like little small kind of like agency life work there. It was
Yeah.
great. It was a good time. And then I ended up coming to Helen and Gertrude because I realized that although nonprofit work is very rewarding, I wanted to bolster my skills and really start to kind of hone in more on data analytics as well as continuing to maintain a lot of the paid media strategy work that I'd already developed too in my career.
Mhm.
So that's where I am today. And I think a lot of my experiences have really helped position me in a good spot. And I'm just really excited to continue working through that.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned kind of strengthening and growing your data analytics skills as well. That's like something that I wouldn't have guessed for somebody wanting to like develop if I heard like they're in, new marketing, marketing and design. I wouldn't really think that, oh, they want to develop their, data analytics. Now, what made you want to do that for Helen and Gertrude? That why is it that they kind of value that a lot, and then going off of that, let's dive into a little bit of what your day to day is like at Helen and Gertrude and how have you used those skills there.
Yeah, totally. So I would say uh, when I was kind of seeking new opportunities and just kind of understanding every agency or every company has different structures in terms of data analytics and data capabilities. I was seeking more opportunities in that area because I find, at least in my experience, that when a company has good at data infrastructure, they
Hmm.
can derive better insights and better value to their clients too. And especially in agency life, you're typically working with a lot of different clients. And what's I really enjoy now, especially, is being able to present those insights and really see like that light bulb switch of
Yeah.
when somebody gets what's going on in a very complicated campaign, let's say, but being able to distill that knowledge into very like succinct details that they can then recapitulate to their internal stakeholders too. So I wanted that more, and marketing in general, I think, is becoming more and more data driven. But at the same time, you need to be able to take two steps back and be able to further I would say like just explain and detail out what's going on in a very simplistic way. So
Yeah.
simplicity is key. And Helen and Gertrude, I think, is continuing to push those boundaries with the data capabilities that they have and being able to service a variety of different clients.
Yeah.
Some of the clients that we work with range from verticals like healthcare, wine and spirits or food and beverage really, and even skincare and beauty, as well as nonprofit and technical and manufacturing
Yeah.
too. So big
Wow,
span.
that's awesome that like you understood what, Helen and Gertrude, you understood what, what their pillars were, what they value, what they focus on, and you went and you kind of built on those skills. So a lot of times when people are thinking like, what skills should I be developing? What should I be learning? It's like you can look at, where you want to end up, just research, see what they value, what they want to build on, and then just go get those skills. So that's a great kind of like working backwards. Now, out of all these places that you mentioned that you worked at, all the projects that you've worked on, is there one project that, stands out to you that you remember it either as the most rewarding project that you worked on, most challenging maybe?
That's a good question. From a project perspective, I would say maybe I had the this is like not at my current role right now, but in the past, at Simpson and Scarborough, actually, I was able to work with one client, Penn State University, and
Nice.
in particular, their Smeal College of Business. I don't know, I never wanted to go there, but I always admired them from afar. And there was just a lot of work that I got to luckily take part of on that in terms of promoting a lot of their MBA programs.
Oh,
And there was a lot of obstacles as well in terms of just figuring out the best way to communicate and provide insights to them in the way that they wanted.
hmm.
And I think that was one of the most rewarding ways because it wasn't necessarily always hard. And when we got over those hurdles of communication and better understanding data and how we can present campaign results to them in the way that they needed to, it was
Yeah.
very rewarding, I would say, too. And of course, right, you're working in higher ed, so
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily that stressful as well, which was
Yeah.
great.
Absolutely. So when you're talking about, all these skills and, skills and mindset that you've kind of developed and built, over the years from your undergrad schooling to professional journey, what is like one skill or mindset would you say that was not taught in school and it was something that you had to learn on your own in professional career and it's maybe something that should be taught in undergrad, but it was something that you just had to go on and build on it.
Yeah, I think communication, honestly, like it was to some degree, it was taught.
Hmm.
But I think there needs to really just be like a class of like understanding either what like corporate speak is and how to play that game. Um, while also making sure that you're consistently like almost like bragging about yourself. It's so, I know this sounds so self-centered, but it really does help you in the long run in terms of understanding like how to prioritize like certain meetings,
Yeah.
how to structure your one-on-ones. Like there just needs to be like a corporate or even just like a business focused class about like how you set yourself up for success when you're talking to either your manager or like your other colleagues too. I really wish like you can get a lot of those resources from like podcasts now,
Hmm.
which I really enjoy, but that was never taught in college, which I feel like is just a miss,
Yeah.
honestly.
Absolutely. And I honestly don't know if some of these like will be emphasized more in school,
Yeah.
or because some of these skills I feel like are just you have to learn you just have to be almost like thrown in the water
Yeah.
and you just have to learn how to swim, right?
Yeah.
And you think about it and you're like, oh, I wish I was taught this in school, but sometimes it's hard to be taught in like a teaching setting versus like real life. So, as someone like you who's experienced or knows about both sides of marketing, agency and, being on the client side, what's the biggest difference between the way marketing is approached, right? Like working with a client side or working for an agency itself. Have you ever had to work for like I guess a client, like a
Yeah.
client come to you guys versus working just I guess in-house, like for an agency? So
Yeah.
what's the biggest difference there? Whether it's, the work type of work that's being done, atmosphere, environment.
Yeah, definitely. I would say there's always pros and cons, right, to both. Um, from a corporate or in-house side, really, like you're a little bit more slower, I would say, just overall in terms of pace. You do have probably like deadlines you have to meet and such
Mhm.
too, just like any job, but the pace there is a little bit different compared to agency life. Probably because you have like your set team that doesn't change very much, meaning there's not a lot of high turnover, maybe, or you just have a different type of structure. And I think there's benefits to being in both too, meaning
Mhm.
in corporate life, you kind of get that slower pace that lets you focus on what you want in terms of like set projects or set deliverables that will not change too much. And in comparison, agency life is a little bit faster, and you might be working with a lot of different people, which could be good or bad depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah.
I kind of pivoted more towards agency life after kind of being more in-house because I realized that I like brainstorming with other people. I like being able to work on multiple projects at the same time. You really get that variety, and that's also good early on for your portfolio so that you can really develop that out and list back to a lot of different things that you've accomplished in your career.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of difference. Corporate life's a little bit slower, but you have those set deliverables that aren't changing too much. Agency life is a little bit faster, but you're working with a lot of different people, and you get a lot more experience overall,
Yeah.
typically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now that we're like kind of covering the pros and cons, the differences between different areas, let's talk about like some of the challenges that you face, right? What are some of the biggest challenges somebody going through these roles and someone on your path could face, or some challenges that you faced? And also after that, including, the layoff that you went through, because at these times, especially in this economy, a lot of people are going through layoffs. So as somebody who, have gone through layoffs, what was that experience like for you? What did you learn from it afterwards? And what advice would you have for someone going through a layoff?
Yeah, all great questions. I'll start kind of just with overall obstacles in general that I think anyone will come into
Yeah.
contact with are just communication in general. Like figuring out how to tell your boss like what you're doing and what you want to prioritize based off of what they're trying to tell you to do too is just always going to be, I feel like, a struggle. But when you're able to organize all of your work in an efficient manner and show your boss too that you're working on what you need to be from a day
Hmm.
to day or a whatever cadence perspective, that's kind of going to be a really beneficial thing for you to develop as you continue throughout your career, because then you'll honestly make better relationships and that'll help you overall too.
Yeah.
So communication. I would also say maybe like a little bit of imposter syndrome too. I know that word gets thrown a lot around a lot. I kind of felt it a little bit at Simpson Scarborough just because I always felt like I needed to have the right answer. And
Hmm.
that's not necessarily always the case. It actually, when you let somebody know that you have to come back to them with more information, that gives you more of a trustworthy feeling too. But being young, I always thought I had to know everything, and that's really not the case. So
Yeah.
a little bit of that. And then finally to the layoff point, I never thought I would get laid off at such a young age. I just didn't think that was even a thing until it happened. But then talking to a lot of my other friends, like that's becoming, unfortunately, a very common thing. And I think the way that I kind of pivoted out of it was that I knew I needed to leave earlier, but I just didn't because I was very comfortable. And that really gave me like the kick in the butt that I needed to kind of figure out like where's the next opportunity I need to go to better my skills and improve my skill set overall. So
Yeah.
it was good. It was
No,
good, but it
absolutely.
sucked.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I went through a layoff as well, and the way I want to look at it is like everything is a learning opportunity. You
Yep.
learn, better for this to happen earlier in life
Yep.
while we're younger
Right.
than happen later in life when we got more things going on and we're older. So, you've had a plentiful of experiences in your journey. If you could go back in time, right, maybe to the beginning of your schooling, beginning of your professional career, is there any one thing that you would change? Any one thing you would do differently?
Invest more.
Invest more?
But that's a financial side.
Yeah.
I would say probably just do more like informational interviews, like attend more opportunities for networking. And I luckily like RAT gave me that opportunity, so it wasn't like I didn't do it. I just don't think I did it enough
Yep.
to be able to really build that like huge base of people that I knew or could reach out to. And probably what I would have done if I was younger too and knew about this at a younger age was get a mentor, whether that's like
Mm,
just somebody from like somebody that I know that like I just talk to on like a specific cadence, or just somebody that like I look up to and I ask like advice every now and then. I think that's becoming more and more common now, especially because you're I feel like skill sets, especially in marketing, are just so multifaceted. So being able to kind of better understand like what are those skill sets that I need to do and why,
yeah.
um, from somebody who has been through it, right, would have been really helpful. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. I think the mentor part is a great, thing to kind of, I guess, follow or tap into because, what you learn in school is important, but I always found out that like when I spoke to somebody that was in the field, that was doing the work day to day, it felt a lot more real and more motivating than like, professors are great. They teach a lot of great stuff, but I could never like feel that level of, reality from like a teaching or a class setting. But when you talk to somebody when they're in it, they tell you about what they're doing or their advice, it feels so much more real because you're like, they're in the field, they're doing it, right? So that's great advice. I have a few more questions for you before we wrap up, and this next one might kind of be overlapping with what you said before, and that's okay. But if somebody listening wants to break into media and
mm,
marketing today, what one piece of advice would you have for them to be able to break into the field? And now this person could be in marketing right now in a different, maybe lower level, but I'm more thinking that somebody is not in marketing, somebody in a completely different field. How could they break into this career path? Maybe they realized, now later in life that this is what they're interested in. They want to move into marketing.
yeah, yeah. I I honestly think it's relatively easy. It just depends on kind of like what niche of marketing they want to break into. If you want to go more of the social media side, that's very like there's a million different flavors of that. We
Hmm.
always talk about, I feel like in marketing, just in general, whenever you talk to a marketer, there's like the tools in your tool belt. So depending on what niche you want to go in, I would equip yourself with those tools. So social media, maybe getting a lot of courses free, of course, because who wants to pay for those? Get your employer to pay for those, please. But free courses related through like good resources like Hootsuite, or go do some freelance work and really just kind of immerse yourself into kind of better understanding like what are clients or people caring about and why, and how can
Hmm.
you make that relevant to what they need to.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a lot of communication skills that you really need. And depending on what industry this person is coming from, it's really about just kind of making sure that you're being very clear and concise with objectives to really, at the end of the day, hit the right audience at the right time with the right messaging. And of course, like that's a very salesy kind of way of positioning marketing, but at the end of the day, that resonates with a lot of people because it's very succinct and simple to communicate about too.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree. And the freelance part is great too. And I feel like the points you mentioned about communication and networking goes hand in hand because if you want to do freelance work, you better have good communication,
right,
good social skills, be able to network.
right.
Now, my next question, what is something that you're curious to learn next or work on next, whether it's professionally or even personally? Could be non-media marketing related.
Mm, that's a good question. I would say I am always going to be forever a student, one. So I'm always trying to learn more. Like I mentioned before, in media and marketing, you're literally every day is changing. So there's always something to learn more about. Lately, I've been trying to dabble more and more into, I would say, kind of like analyst role
Hmm.
functions. So that can be from like just even like pivoting data, raw data, or using AI to examine data a little bit more further and like categorizing that, training AI models with data. I think that's something that like I want to continue to work through, but in a very um compliant manner and trying to be as safe with that as possible, just because as we know, there's a lot of different ways that you could do that very poorly.
Yeah.
So looking into compliance with AI and data analytics there, but also leveraging a lot of uh, like Google products too. So in particular, kind of understanding the flow of data from like a data warehouse and then ingesting that into different types of reports too. So using Google Data Studio, or it used to be called Looker Studio too. So using that tool and really making cool dashboards at the end of the day. I
Yeah.
really have been enjoying that lately and want to continue more.
Absolutely. I hope people listening that are interested in this field take some of these notes of the places that you're learning things from, because a lot of these sources are great sources. Next question, and if you need a minute to think about this one, or if you don't have an answer on top of your head, that's okay. But what's a dream company if you could work for any company out there or any person out there? Let's say any athlete, actor, actress, singer, if any of them were to start their own business of anything, you could work for anyone or any company. What would it be?
Mm, honestly, lately I've just been thinking about like if I could ever just like be a supportive, I don't know, like honestly, podcasting is like just such a lucrative, I think, not, job in general. And
Hmm.
like being able to support like a podcast host, some of the podcasts that I listen to, like Girls Gotta Eat, or I don't even know, like even like Morning Brew Daily, right? Like
Hmm.
just those like very big podcasts that just provides such and really just continue to help people learn about like what's
Yeah.
going on day to day or like in specific niche topics. I think that's such a cool opportunity to maybe do like in my later life when I'm rich and like on a island somewhere sipping my mojito. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But for now, I'm just trying to make sure that I get as much experience as I can in the digital marketing landscape, and
Yeah.
that will be probably enough for a while.
Absolutely. And that kind of bridges me to my last question, which is if you have a suggestion of a book that you've read that kind of influenced you, you learned something from it. And I was going to ask what other podcasts you listen to, which you already named a couple. So yeah, what book suggestion would you have for listeners for it to be their next book?
I think I was gonna write this down and I forgot to. I think it might be Radical Candor. I think that's the title. I forget the author, but that one is really good for more like managerial, I would say.
What is it
Kind
called
of
again?
Radical Candor, I
Radical
believe.
Candor. Okay.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, by Ken Scott.
Got it.
Really good for, I would say, like just corporate game,
Yeah.
honestly, and trying to communicate. But then in terms of like more either strategy or technical resources too, I really enjoy Julian Cole and his strategy finishing school, Chef's Kiss, for just like high level strategy concepts or trying to help you kind of level up your strategy career. And then from a technical marketing standpoint, his last name I can never spell right because it's so long, but his name is Julius Fedorakis, I believe. He's the founder of Analytics Mania. So if you're
Hmm.
interested in learning more about GA4 or any type of analytics with GA4 in particular, that's really helpful. And finally, Adrian Decker for any Google Ads specific updates. And honestly, in general, too, just making sure that you're following interesting influencers on LinkedIn and getting those like daily updates are super helpful, I've found too. So,
That's a great tip.
yeah,
That's a great tip. I like these asking these last questions every time too, because I take a lot of these tips for myself too. I'll check out a lot of these books for myself as well, so I
nice.
love it.
Nice.
Well, Andrea, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, your insight, and all the tips and advice that you've given. It was packed with, for anyone trying to understand what a modern marketing career looks like, including myself. I learned so much that I didn't know. It's very complex and there's a lot more beneath the surface of what we see, from the outside looking in. So I really appreciate you coming on Career Tea and sharing your journey. And hopefully we'll have you back on again in the future and we'll see how your career has unfolded then.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Sarab. I really appreciate it.